Let's explore what it means to manage time and to look at time in a different way. As you know, time is a relative thing as Einstein discovered his theory of general relativity. But I'm not going to get into the physics of that. I'm going to get into how you can manage time in a different way by looking at time differently in a data-driven way. So let's begin right here. So as you know, there's 168 hours per week, which means you can divide time in a different way. So you have 60, so for me, the way I define my pie chart was having 60, 30, and 10. 60% is for work, studying, reading, writing, like research, whatever that means for you when you do work. 30% means sleep. We sleep 30% of our lifetime. And sleep is a really important thing. So sleep 30% is about 7 to 8 hours every night. The next 10% means others, whether that means eating, whether that means talking to friends, whatever that means for you. You decide what it means for you. So once we know our pie chart, then we can get down. And then, so we have 168, so 60% of that is about 100 hours. 100 hours to do work. So if you divide 100 hours by 7, you get about 14 hours to do work every single day. Of course, that's very idealistic in that's not always necessarily going to be the case. But it's always good to have a metric that you can aspire to, so you have something to look forward to and almost achieve or even surpass it sometimes. So once we have that, then we can get into the daily, talking daily. So as I said, 14 hours to do work, 7.2 hours of sleep, and 2.8 hours, about 3 hours of other. That means being yourself, exercising, talking to others, eating, whatever. Perfect. But before I did all of that, I actually came here and did my priorities. Priorities, as for me, as a college student who is involved in school, research, and who's also involved in what I call the Da Vinci life, which is writing essays and in having a creative life. That's about my priorities. So I wrote everything down in a list of my priorities. So the first one that I had in mind was my biophysics research. So I'm estimating that will take me about 15 hours per week. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's an average. School, I wrote all my classes according to what I estimate will take me every week to do well and excel in those classes. And I got to 51 hours per week of just studying and reading and attending classes and so on. Next one, what I call the Da Vinci life, which for me means daily writing, which I write every week, writing essays. The newsletter, which takes me about an hour to write it, an hour and a half to write. And then YouTube, just like I'm doing right now, just making a video, which I estimate will take me about 30 minutes to an hour every week. So, and then the last session, the fourth session here is tinkering, which basically means just exploring or learning some skills. So like, as of now, what I have to learn, what I want to learn is video editing, which I'm learning, CAD, perfecting my skills, programming, just working on some programming projects, and some startups ideas, finding who my customer is, how I'm going to build it, and so on. So I did all of that, and then I summed everything up, which turns out to be about 75 hours per week. Out of the 100 hours I already decided here that I have available to work. But we're not always going to be 100% effective because you might feel tired, you might feel under the weather, whatever that means. So 75 hours per week, then you have about, so what I estimated, so 75 divided by 7, you get about 11 hours per week out of the 14 hours idealized. So 11 hours per week turns out to be a lot of time to do work and to work on something that matters. Honestly, before doing that, I thought I maybe had like 5 hours, 6 hours, but it turns out that you have a lot more time than you think. And seeing this in a data-driven way, you can realize and explore your horizons and define what you need to do according to what you want to achieve. And again, when you realize how much time you have to do the things that you want to do, you get more motivated, you get inspired to do things. That's why this is so important. Next, what you can do for yourself is, once you define the weekly time that will take each task to do, you can then go and have an average of what it will take daily. You can do divided by 7, you can do divided by 6, depending on how willing are you when you work on each day, and depending on the things that you have to do. Then, for example, let's say that you have soccer practice on Mondays, and that's 2 hours. Maybe you're not going to be able to do your biophysics research, or let's say that you want to focus on the newsletter. For me, on Fridays only, just devote 1 hour instead of dividing the hour by 7, right? So you can play around with that. And then what you can actually do, this is what I do every week, is that I write every single hour from 5, which is the time I wake up, until 10, which is the time I go to sleep, and define the task that I'm going to do. Always keeping the weekly time in mind that I need to devote to those activities in order to reach mastery, excellence level, because this is the goal that you always aspire to look forward to. The bottom line of this video and this teaching is that, hey, realize how much time you have. And maybe you won't have 11 hours or 14 hours like I do, but maybe you'll have 8 or you have 5, whatever that means for you. Maybe you have more than 14. Who knows? But it's important to realize how much time you have, and then you will realize and start getting to work on something that matters, that contributes to society and helps other people. Again, it's not about always being super productive, because that's not the purpose of life. The purpose of life is just living. But sometimes living could mean for you to carry the torch of progress in science, or create a new technology company, whatever that means for you, or create a YouTube video like I'm doing right now. The purpose of life is living, but remember that productivity, knowledge, and all these things are compounding. So the more you do, the more productive and knowledge you will get. And like I said, the purpose of life is living, but if you have a life that is highly productive, sometimes you may get more satisfaction, and sometimes what I actually care about is you can have the opportunity to help other people. The week only has 168 hours, but what matters is that you enjoy every minute, every second, every nanosecond, and every moment of that week. Thank you so much.